guys, welcome back to Loudmouth's Law. Thank you so much to everybody who watched my last video, and especially to the people who commented, because I really enjoyed reading you guys' comments and responding. It was so much fun, and you guys had a lot of interesting things to say. It's definitely a lot to think about. Anyway, if you watched the last video, I hope you enjoy this one. I mean, guys, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, I have to say, this is my fourth time filming this video. I've had lots of technical difficulties, and I'm trying out filming on a new software. But yeah, I don't know how I feel. This is my fourth time filming this video, and it's kind of painful because I'm just being reminded of how mediocre it is. It's a great way to start a video, by undermining the substance of it. But I dare you to keep watching. I dare you to decide if it's good for yourself. Anyway, I set up a poll on my channel, thank you to the 6 voters, and you guys decided that you wanted to see a video on hyper-individualism. Just to preface, I feel like this video is a little bit less STEM-coded than my last one, which I don't think is necessarily a problem because I didn't ever advertise this channel as being a STEM channel. There will still be some numbers in here for you maths fiends, but this one is a lot more about sociology and social observations and stuff. I really enjoyed doing the research and everything and writing. I'm so sorry. I hope you guys enjoy watching this. Today's law is you cannot dream of revolution before you think of your neighbour. And, as you know, today's subject is hyper-individualism and how it will cause the downfall of humanity. Looking around in our modern society, I'm sure we've all seen our fair share of things that just make us question, where is the love? For me, I think it's the fact that I will never cease to be absolutely horrified by how cutthroat Instagram Reels comment sections are. It's like, if you post on Reels, you're pretty much just serving yourself up on a platter to be ravaged. Maybe ravaged isn't the word. It's not really relevant to anything. I just wanted to say that. Anyway, an excerpt from Encyclopedia of Critical Whiteness Studies and Education defines hyper-individualism as the tendency in a liberal individualist society for social actors to understand themselves as disparate entities rather than primarily as members of collectives or groups. It later elaborates, while there are group-level phenomena in this worldview, those groups can be best understood as collectives of individuals. This is pretty important to remember for some of my later points, but don't worry, I will remind you if you forget. Just to start, let's look at some potential causes and associated behaviours of, I was about to say anti-intellectualism, that's so last week. Some potential causes and associated behaviours of hyper-individualism. The World Health Organization, the WHO, so to speak, reported that 1 in 6 people worldwide experience loneliness, it being most common amongst adolescents and young adults, where approximately 1 in 5 experience loneliness, and in lower income countries, where nearly 1 in 4. Loneliness accounts for approximately 871,000 deaths each year, which is 100 every hour. You may wonder, how does loneliness cause death? I'm
about to tell you.
This is due to its impact on physical health, such as developing conditions like cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes. I'm assuming mostly due to leading a more sedentary lifestyle, not socializing in much, and also due to the impact it can have on your mental health, such as depression and anxiety, other disorders like that. If you experience such extreme loneliness to the detriment of your physical and or mental health, this will understandably impact your connection to society and your peers. This part is pretty sociology heavy. I felt like Karl Marx doing the research for it. Strain theory, which was developed by Robert K. Merton, is defined as a societal explanation for why some people commit crimes or break rules. It predicts that deviance is likely to happen where there's a misalignment between the cultural goals of a society and the opportunities people have to obtain them. For example, one primary cultural goal in our society in the West, I guess, actually pretty widespread throughout the world, is financial prosperity. People want to be rich, or at least comfortable, but some can only work full-time low-wage jobs which don't nearly cover their cost of living. Merton's strain theory predicts that such a person's frustration at their lack of financial stability may push them towards theft, fraud, or other illegal means of obtaining wealth. Some of the goals include social status, personal independence, and material possessions, like having them, I guess. Yeah. That's typically what you do. If we look at this typology, which was also created by Merton, we can see the 5 different responses to strain. Conformists, who agree with society's goals and follow socially approved methods of attainment. Innovators, who still aim for society's goals but use unapproved or illegal means to achieve them. When I think about innovators, I kind of think about like Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights, or like Gatsby. Ritualists, who abandon society's values but still follow approved rules and routines. Retreatists, who reject society's goals and legitimate ways of achieving them. And rebels, who substitute new goals and means, challenging authority and the social system. For the purposes of this video, I think I'm mostly going to be focusing on conformity and rebellion. You're likely to be a conformist if you believe in pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Perhaps our societal structure and the way that it works right now actually benefits you a lot. You might be a CEO of a largely successful company that benefits off of capitalism, or an investor with lots of money to put into capital for the aforementioned CEOs. Regardless, many people hold the belief that if you work hard enough and often for long enough, you're bound to meet success eventually. If every member of modern society were conformists, hyper-individualism would inarguably be the societal norm. That's where rebels come in. Rebels acknowledge the faults in our political systems and in the operation of society, but strive to create a new order in which these flaws are remedied. This is in pursuit of a better future for our society, and it can be thought of as the
concept which is diametrically opposed to the
Gluteus Maximus. No, I'm joking. Kind of like the opposite ideology to individualism, which is collectivism. On to humanity. Humanity primarily refers to human beings as a collective group, but it's also the virtue linked with altruistic ethics. Humans are interdependent. Even on a purely economic or monetary level, we all rely on one another for survival. If the mindset of individualism becomes more widespread throughout our communities, there's going to be a fundamental discrepancy between the way that society functions and the way that people act like it functions. Society relies on at least a little bit of empathy for our fellow man, but hyper-individualism does pose as a direct threat to humanity. Throughout history, there have been innumerable revolts, some successful and others not. For my little case study on why individualism is not the ideal mindset for humanity, I've chosen the Haitian Revolution. This one's for my history buffs. This one's for my history fans out there. I was really bad at history when I did it in school. Like, I genuinely couldn't remember dates for the life of me, and I dropped it like a hot potato when it was time to choose GCSEs. Anyway, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the events of the Haitian Revolution to establish some bases, because I will be referring to it in some later points. I guess if you already know a lot about the Haitian Revolution, if it happens to be your special interest or your hyperfixation, you could probably skip this time as part of the video. The events of the Haitian Revolution unfolded between 1791 and 1804, and it's often described as the largest and most successful slave rebellion in the Western Hemisphere. It was influenced partly by the French derogatory revolution. The first main action that occurred was slaves rebelling against planters, led by Tissot.
I hope I'm saying that at least 12% correctly.
By 1792, they controlled a third of the island, which is really impressive. I mean, they made quick work, to be honest. In 1793, French and British forces arrived in an attempt to conquer the colony, but they withdrew in 1798. By 1801, Tissot expanded the revolution beyond Haiti and conquered Santo Domingo, which is now known as the Dominican Republic. Unfortunately, Napoleon sent 43,000 French troops to capture the goat, Tissot, and restore French rule and slavery in 1802. Unfortunately, yes, our goat died in prison the year after. Thankfully, our second goat, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, led the revolutionaries on the 18th of November of the same year and defeated the French. In 1804, he declared the nation independent and Haiti was born. That's kind of the history lesson over. The main point here, in specific relation to hyper-individualism, is that the Haitian Revolution would never have been conceived if the Haitian people's sense of collective and national identity was weak, if they all believed mostly in individualism. The nation was severely broken up by skin colour, class, and gender. There was a group of people known as affranchis.
Hey guys, editing loudmouth here. In the context of the Haitian Revolution, the term affranchis is used to describe people who used to be slaves, but then became slave owners. Nowadays, it is a derogatory term for people of mixed African and mostly white descent, so I probably wouldn't go around saying it for fun.
Who were freed slaves turned slave owners, and they strived not for freedom or independence of Haiti, but to rise to the socio-economic status of the Europeans. They could be said to have adopted an individualist mindset. Despite this, the revolution still happened and was successful, marking Haiti as the first country to be founded by former slaves. The revolution was actually sparked by a Wakaimon ceremony led by voodoo priest Dati Boukman, which is actually a sick name, and I really love that. The revolution was planned here, and a pact was made, solidified by a voodoo ritual, which I find really interesting. I wouldn't say African discourse or anything, but Haitians are actually pretty well known, I think, in Africa for their practices in voodoo and witchcraft, which is really cool because obviously it worked out for them. They became the first country founded by former slaves, pretty impressive. I'm Nigerian, so I've probably got some witchcraft in me. I think I could hack it. Maybe I could do something about the Trump administration. I don't know, hit me up. Anyway, I've evaluated a few different points of our society that I think are in need of change, specifically in reference to hyper-individualism. Like I mentioned earlier, I will be using the Haitian Revolution as an occasional reference point. My first observation is a lack of class consciousness, which in Marxist theory is defined as the self-understanding of members of a social class. This relates way back to one of the primary cultural goals in society being financial prosperity. If we, again, bring it back to the Haitian Revolution, there was no room for confusion, there were no grey areas. It was made very clear that obviously the white slave owners or even the affranchis were more worthy of earning a living wage than the people who were enslaved. There was absolutely no, okay, but I don't know, maybe they respect us a little bit, maybe they don't actually mean to work us to death without even giving us money to feed ourselves, you know? It was pretty clear. Not to compare slavery to anything else in the world, but I think the reason why we lack that level of class consciousness today is due to an increase in content being made by influencers who are trying to pass as everyday people but are obviously not. I mean, social media does make escapism easy, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm not anti-social media or anything. But if you're consuming this content where people who are making an obscene amount of money a year are trying to put themselves on the same level as you by relating on the basis of things like having an interest in thrifting and vintage fashion, and you're not having your thinking cap on, I guess, it's pretty easy to ignore the financial circumstance and even the societal structures that can cause strain, like was mentioned earlier in the video. That was a bunch of word vomit, I'm really sorry. I hope that it's decipherable to some extent. This lack of awareness, I feel goes beyond just accepting cultural goals and chasing the institutionalized means of accomplishment without being fully informed on where you stand in the social hierarchy. It's like you exist in a sort of limbo where you have yet to decide if you want to conform or rebel. You don't really have the facilities to decide. My second observation is myopic decision making, which I is a term I picked up in economics, yeah. I'm not excited to go back to school. It refers to a type of irrational behaviour where people make decisions solely based on what will happen in the short term, rather than fully evaluating the long-term costs and benefits. If the enslaved people of Haiti thought myopically, then the revolution would probably never have happened.
It took 13 years at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, 13 years later. Like, I don't expect that anyone would have thought it would be just a really quick turnaround either. They probably knew they were in for the long haul. Unlike the affranchis, who sought to lessen their suffering maybe for the rest of their own lives, the group that started the revolution made an effort that they wanted, and it did, change the future of Haiti for generations to come. My third observation, which is a bit of a big dog, so hold on to your hats, is the prevalence of capitalism. In order for a revolution to be at least moderately successful, I feel, at least in the present day, the oppressor has to be willing to listen to its captive if they want to, change anything. Here's why at present this isn't likely. Capitalism revolves around the motive to make a profit. As the 18th century economist Adam Smith said, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from the regard to their own interest. I think that's quite a banger. He cooked with that one. There are some pillars of capitalism which are just like the core principles around which it functions. Two that I think are notable for this subject are self-interest, through which people act in pursuit of their own good, without regard for socio-political pressure, and freedom to choose with respect to consumption, production, and investment. When you combine those two principles, you get the notion that if producers can maximize profits and revenue by monetizing their supply, they will. They will jump on that like a pogo stick. You don't really jump on a pogo stick, do you? Like a trampoline. Here, thinking of capitalists as a collective of individuals, just generally people who are pretty high up on the social ladder and do benefit from capitalism. Obviously, it's not profitable for companies to just give away goods and services for free, but when it gets to the point that conglomerates are quite literally draining common people of all that they're worth, hot take, I'd say we've gone too far. An interview with Dr. Cassia Lipska by the Yale School of Medicine discussed that it only takes an estimated $2 to $4 to produce a single vial of insulin, yet it costs upwards of $250 in the US. Insulin is a hormone literally essential for living. If you're diabetic and your body doesn't produce enough, or sometimes even doesn't produce any insulin, say goodbye to the land of the living. It is really, you need it. Despite the cost of production being relatively low, pharmaceutical companies drive the price of insulin up as much as is humanly possible, really, because they know that their consumers can't just be like, oh, I guess I'll miss my monthly dosage. It's not really something that you can forgo. I mean, the chokehold that this capitalist society has on its citizens is insane. How likely is it that the figures behind these corporations are just willing to relinquish control for the good of humanity? Furthermore, a paper published from Stanford University explained that from a sample of 179 CEOs, upwards of 18% might be considered narcissists. Combine this with the correlation between narcissism and Machiavellianism, fat chance that CEOs as a collective of individuals would be willing to sympathize with the rest of the world. Obviously, I know that nothing is this simple. I know that this isn't how anything works, but a girl can dream, Just for this portion of the video, I'm going to put on my rose-tinted glasses. I'm going to talk about why I think that the American healthcare system is in need of reform.
And naturally how it correlates to hyper-individualism, which I forgot to say here, but yeah, it's relevant.
Not necessarily in the racist EDL way, just general change. But as a prelude, I'm going to show you this clip of Gil Scott-Heron, who was an American musician, jazz poet, and author, briefly explaining what the title of one of his songs means.
Well, you know, the catchphrase, what that was all about, the revolution will not be televised, that was about the fact that the first change that takes place is in your mind. You have to change your mind before you change the way you live and the way you move.
With that, here is why the American healthcare system might be worth rebelling over. Again, briefly referring back to the earlier clarification of hyper-individualism, while there are group-level phenomena in this worldview, those groups can be best understood as collectives of individuals.
And didn't I say I'd remind you?
Here, let's think of the majority of healthcare providers in the US as a collective of capitalists. America is currently the only developed country in the world without universal healthcare, where most healthcare is provided by the private sector, and a significant number of Americans are underinsured or lack health insurance altogether. There are many different healthcare providers and insurance companies in the US that are worth talking about, but in this video I'm going to zone in on United Health for no specific reason. Let's jump back to 2006. I mean, just the year after Supernatural started airing. I feel it's a pretty good time to be alive. You know, when music was jumping, jeans were falling, and the US Securities and Exchange Commission began investigating the conduct of management and directors for backdating of stock options within the United Health Company. The Wall Street Journal claimed that it occurred to the knowledge and approval of directors, resulting in the then CEO, William W. McGuire, having to repay $468 million, including a $7 million civil penalty as a partial settlement of the prosecution. Strike one. On September 13th, 2019, 3 addiction and mental health treatment centers sued United Behavioral Health, United Health's mental health subsidiary, alleging that they had denied $5 million in behavioral health treatment claims for self-insured and fully insured employer health plans for residential and outpatient treatment from 2011 to 2017. Some of these people were children. And mind you, the United Health Group's annual net income in 2019 was this big fat number, $13,839,000,000. So I'm not exactly sure what reason they had to be stingy. Strike two! Most recently, in the year of our Lord 2025, a New York Times investigation revealed that United Health, with the help of a law firm called Clare Locke, which I think I may have begged for work experience this summer, I'm not entirely sure, there are quite a few firms that I begged. And also, I'm not anybody, but I feel kind of nervous, criticizing United Health and a major law firm. United Health had made legal threats against journalists and practices. They also made takedown requests to social media companies whose platforms just had content that spoke negatively of them. Strike three! You're out. Maybe they should have spent the money that they used in legal fees on actually covering their customers' claims. I don't know, might be a good idea. It's so obvious that capitalistic greed impairs certain organizations' abilities to function adequately. If I were a rebel, I would reject society's cultural goals and their institutional means of accomplishment. I might take it a step further and say this needs to change. So I might fundraise some money to cover the cost of providing medical aid, or I could be a crazy rich philanthropist who already has the funds, perchance. And then, getting crazy with it, I might get together a union of healthcare professionals who agree with my cause and help them come up with methods of care delivery that deviate from what you could call standard protocol to ensure that every patient gets the care that they need. Obviously, this is a very idealized version of reality, but the concept is there, Did you let me cook there for a minute? Do you think that the concept is there as well? This makes me question, is it ever okay to force collectivism on a population? And you know what? I think it is. A philanthropist's daydream would not likely work out, as was identified by British Liberal politician and economist William Beveridge. Before the NHS was established, obviously most healthcare was provided through philanthropy. But in 1942, William Beveridge dropped this banger, the Social Insurance and Allied Services Report, urging the government to set up a free national service for healthcare. His vision for the entire report was to battle what he called the 5 giants, the Big Five. The Fantastic Five! Idleness, ignorance, disease, squalor and want. Obviously, this wasn't so popular with some of the local authorities that ran hospitals since they didn't want to lose control. But the National Health Service Act was passed by the Labour government. Did I say Labour government? By the Labour government in 1946. Today, the NHS is mainly funded through taxation and national insurance contributions. All this to say, we all put in money and we all get something out of it. No single person is considered more important or more worthy of assistance. This doesn't necessarily have the, Disney Channel after school special charm to it, since it's not like we as a country decided to just pool in our resources to better the healthcare system. But, at the end of the day, healthcare is free and available to those who need it. If you get stabbed, you're probably not going to leave the hospital with a bigger wound in your pocket than in any part of your body. Also, if you're interested in this sort of thing, I would really encourage you to look into the whole William Beveridge stuff, because some of his takes are pretty interesting. Not as interesting as mine, but Because the point is, to sum it up, the immediate threat that hyper-individualism poses to humanity is that social change and reform is only possible through a collective effort, where we all want to make a difference and we all try to make a difference. But when we think of ourselves too often as solo riders in society, rather than as members of the interdependent ecosystem that we are, we pick and choose which causes we care about, mostly based on which affect us directly, and no meaningful change has ever been impacted by being selfish. This is just not the way forward. I was going to give a TLDR at the start because I foresaw that this video was going to be a whopper, but then I was like, leave them wanting more. Who's going to watch the video if I just give a really succinct and, concise summary at the beginning? I'm actually really sorry for this video. It's really bad, and I feel bad that it is so bad because this is what you guys voted for, and I feel like I've really underdelivered. It kind of feels like I hope you're hungry for nothing. But I hope that someone took something away from this video. The moral of the story is to be empathetic and be supportive. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more video essays or just any other content. And guys, please keep the comments coming because I've really enjoyed reading the comments on the last video. You guys are pretty cool and you're pretty slay. And also, feel free, I say feel free, but I would rather you just do it. Follow me on my TikTok and my Instagram where I post more short form content. And I will see you in the next video. Yeah, period. Including a 7. I'm spitting all over the place. It's crazy. Oh my gosh, I gleeked the other day. I full on gleeked, and I don't think I've done that in a while. Excuse me, experience it.